Hey mathematics learners, welcome to Distance Learning with Lee, where I make learning mathematics super easy. On today's video tutorial, guys, we are still going through the grade 12 mathematical literacy paper 2 that was written in June 2022. And in this video tutorial, guys, we are going to be tackling question 4.1. And question 4.1 basically deals with the seating plan for a cinema during the COVID-19 pandemic. And this topic is under your maps, plans, and other representations of the physical world. Okay, so before we get started with today's video tutorial, guys, please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Please make sure that you click on that notification bell so that you get notified every single time uploading new video tutorial, guys. And also, don't forget to give this video tutorial a huge thumbs up because that really helps the channel grow and it helps the channel to reach more learners that want to better their mathematics marks. Okay, so without any further ado, guys, let's get started with today's video tutorial. So like I mentioned, guys, in today's video tutorial, we are going to be tackling question 4.1. And question 4.1 basically deals with the seating plan for a cinema during the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so before we get started with our questions and before we even read the information that is given to us here, right, let's just have a look at what is given to us here, right? We are given a key. And this key here basically tells us that obviously when we see that symbol there with a person on a wheelchair, right, that tells us that is basically the seats for people that are on wheelchairs, right? And then when we see like a number, right, that is just in the shade white, that is an available seat. And then when we see obviously a square with like a gray shade, that tells us that that is a vacant seat or a seat that needs to be left vacant, right? The word vacant means that it needs to be left empty, okay? So people shouldn't sit on that seat, okay? We can also see that here at the top, this is basically the screen of our cinema, okay? And that those are basically the entrances of our cinema. Okay, so let's have a look at the information that is given to us. It says that Annexure C shows the seating plan for a cinema during the COVID-19 pandemic, right? It says that seats marked with an X need to be left vacant in order to comply with the social distancing regulations. So I already explained what the word vacant means, right? And it basically means that when we see the seats that are marked with an X, it means that those seats need to be left unoccupied. Okay, so people shouldn't sit on those seats, okay, in order to comply with the social distancing regulations. So if I were to basically take you guys back to what we were basically dealing with during the COVID-19 pandemic, guys, if you guys basically remember, right, we had to basically comply with the social distancing regulations every single way that we went, okay, whether it was Pick n Pay, whether it was the mall, right, we had to basically maintain a certain distance from people in order to prevent this COVID or this virus from spreading from one person to another, okay? So that is basically what was going on. And the seating plan for a cinema was basically taken from that time, okay? So it says that use Annexure C and the information above to answer the questions that follow. Question 4.1.1. On which side of the cinema is seat E4 from seat E15 when a person is facing the screen? So with these type of questions, guys, it's very important that you guys know what your point of reference is, okay? Or in other words, it's important that you guys know what is our starting point, okay? Where is this person seated, right? So if they say from seat E15, it means that our starting point is actually E15, or our point of reference, right, is E15. And from E15, you want to basically determine which side of the cinema is E4. Okay, so let's see. Right, you are on side E15, so we can see that that is E, right? Okay, so we're on row E and we are on seat 15. And we want to basically determine where is E4, right? So if that is E15 and that is E4, right? And we are basically using E15 as our point of reference or E15 as our starting point, right? Then we can basically see that E4 is basically where? To the right of E15. Okay, so that's basically our answer. Okay, if we use E15 as our starting point or as our point of reference, because the question said that it is from seat E15, then we can see that E4 is basically right to the right. Okay, so that is an answer that will be accepted. Let's write that down. All right. Or another answer that can be accepted, right, is that you can also say that, guys, if you remember when we were basically looking at, okay, if you guys basically remember from question 2.2, we had to basically use a compass to basically help us determine the directions from one point to a next, right? So if you also want to use that to help you basically describe where is E4 from E15, right? We know that it's naughty, okay? Naughty elephant sprays water, right? And then that basically tells us that E4 is basically to the east of E15. Okay, so that is also going to be an answer that will also be accepted. So you can also say east. Okay, right? How will they mark this, right? You'll get 2 marks for just saying right, okay? Or you'll get 2 marks for just saying east. Cool stuff. Let us have a look at the next question. Question 4.1.2, assume that pre-COVID-19 conditions apply and all the seats are occupied, right? So what does the word pre mean, right? So the word pre basically means before, right? COVID-19 conditions apply, right? So in this case, let's basically assume that this was basically, or this seating arrangement was before the COVID-19 pandemic, meaning that we won't have these X's, right, in our seating plan, okay, right? And we basically need to use that context to help us answer these questions. Let's have a look at question A. Determine the row and the seat number of the middle seat in the 8th row from the screen. Okay, same thing with this question, guys. It's very important that we establish what is our point of reference, or that we establish what is our starting point. Okay, so if they say from the screen, right, that means that our point of reference is what? The screen. Okay, so we're going to move from the screen and we're going to move down 8 rows. Okay, and then once we've basically determined what that row is, we need to basically find what the middle seat in that row is going to be. All right, let us have a look, right? So we are basically moving from the screen. So our point of reference, we are here, right? And we basically want to move 8 rows from the screen, right? So this is our first one. This is our first row, second row, third row, fourth row, fifth row, 6th row, 7th row, and 8th row. So that is the 8th row from the screen, right? And then in this row, so we see that we're on row K, we want to determine what our middle seat is going to be, right? So in this question, guys, we can basically apply concepts that we've learned in probability when we are basically, or when we are required to determine what the median is, right? So just to remind you guys, remember when we basically determine the median, right? We use the formula n plus 1 divided by 2, right? And this n basically represents the number of elements or outcomes that we have, right? And whatever value that we basically obtain from this formula will basically give us the position of that middle value. Okay, let's see. Let's determine how many outcomes or how many seats do we have in our 8th row. So we are on our 8th row, guys, and we can see that on our 8th row, we actually have how many seats? 21 seats. Okay, but if you've got trust issues and you really want to check if you've got 21 seats, you can just count, right? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So we see that in row number 8, right, from the screen, we actually have 21 seats. So it's going to be 21 plus 1 divided by 2. And whatever number that we get from this formula that we've just used will give us the position of our middle seat. Okay, I'm going to repeat. This is a concept that we basically learn in probability when we basically have to determine the median value, right? Or our Q2 when we basically dealing with our box and whisker plots, or when we're dealing with data and we basically have arranged that data in ascending order, and we want to basically determine like the median of that data. This is the formula that you use. Okay, so 21 plus 1 gives us 22 over 2, which is 11, right? So we're going to look for the 11th seat in our 8th row from the screen, and that 11th seat in row K9, right, is our middle seat. Okay, so then let us see what is our 11th seat. The 11th seat, guys, is the seat. You can count it from the left hand side or from the right hand side. Let me prove that to you. So we're going to count 11 seats from the left hand side. So it's going to be 1, 2. Okay, let's erase that. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So it's that seat there. That is our middle seat. Or you can also check it from the right hand side, right? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? So that is our 11th seat, or our middle seat, right, in row 8 from the screen. Okay, so what is that seat? That seat is in row K, and it's seat number 11, right? So that is our answer for question 4.1.2. So the seat in the middle of your row 8 from the screen is actually seat K11, right? So in this case, guys, you'll get 1 mark for that K, and you'll get another mark for your 11, and that is 2 marks. All right, cool stuff. Let us go to question number 4.1.2b. Right, it says that write down the ratio of the number of wheelchair spaces to the number of seats for patrons, right? Not in wheelchairs, right? So here, guys, we are basically dealing with ratios, and what we are going to be focusing on here is basically writing down the ratio of the number of wheelchair spaces, right, to the number of seats for patrons not in wheelchairs. We basically need to count the seats that have been designated to people that basically use your wheelchairs, right? And count seats that have been designated for people that do not use the wheelchairs, right? And basically get the ratio for that, okay? And what is important, guys, is to basically note this question basically tells you what you need to do. Ratio of the wheelchair places, right, to, right, the patrons not in wheelchairs, right? So here, guys, literally write this down. Write that wheelchair places, the colons, right? Page not in wheelchairs, right? And we take it from there. Okay, let us basically see what I mean by that. So this is question number B, right? So like I mentioned, write out the ratio the way that it has been given to you guys in the question, right? So the ratio of your wheelchairs, so seats that have been designated for people that are using wheelchairs, right? The ratio of the wheelchair spaces to not in wheelchair, all right? And then we basically need to count then, right? How many seats have been designated for people that are using wheelchairs, right? So we're going to count that, guys. How many seats can we see? We see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 seats, right, have been designated for people that use your wheelchairs. So we're going to literally write that down. So 4 wheelchair spaces. 2, how many seats have been designated for people that are not in your wheelchairs, right? So we're going to count how many seats are there for people that are not in wheelchairs. Okay, so in this case, guys, you basically need to obviously be smart about this, right? So you can basically count how many rows or how many seats are in each row. So we can see that here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 seats in each row. So here you can just say 12, right? For that part there, right? You can just say 12 times. How many rows do we have? But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we're just basically calculating, not in wheelchair spaces. Okay, so like I mentioned, we're going to just say that 12 multiplied by 7. Okay, so by us basically taking your 12 and multiplying it by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we know that we've now already counted this whole. We are basically done counting that area there. Okay, then we are going to say plus this 3 there, plus the 3. Okay, then we're going to count that part there, right? So there we can see that there we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows. So it's going to be 8 multiplied by how many seats do we have in that row? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4, right? So we're going to write that down, plus 8 multiplied by 4, right? So then we know now we've basically covered that area. And then all we need to do is basically count the remaining parts. And then that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, that those are basically the remaining seats that we haven't counted. Okay, so it's going to be plus 11. So that is basically a quick and efficient way that we can basically count the seats that are not occupied by people that are in wheelchairs. Okay, so if you basically punch that into your calculator, guys, what do you get? You will get that you get 130 seats. Okay, so meaning that we've got 130 seats that have been designated for people that are not in wheelchairs, right? And then we're going to basically add that to our ratio, which is 130, right? So now you know wheelchair spaces, right? We've got 4 seats that are designated for people that are in wheelchairs, and then we've got 130 seats that have been designated, right, or assigned or put for people that are not in wheelchairs. And all that we need to do, guys, because we know in ratios, right, it's usually 1 is to something, right? So we're going to divide by 4, because what you do on the left-hand side, you also need to do on the right-hand side. So if you divide by 4, it's going to be 1 is 2. 130 divided by 4 gives you 65 over 2, right? So it's going to be 65 divided by 2. But guys, we cannot leave our ratio in this form. We cannot leave it as a fraction like that. Okay. Therefore, what do we need to do? We can just multiply by that 2 to get rid of that 2 in the denominator. And what you do on the left hand side, you also need to do on the right hand side. So 2 multiplied by 1, guys, is 2, right? 65. Okay, and that is our final answer, right? So what is important for this question, guys, is just know writing out the ratio, the way that they've basically given you in the question, right? We want the ratio of the wheelchair spaces to the people that are not in the wheelchairs. And I literally wrote it down like that, right? Ratio of the wheelchair spaces to, right? We've got the colon there, 2 not in wheelchairs. Then we count how many people actually are or how many seats are designated for people that are in wheelchairs. It's 4. How many seats are designated for people that are not in wheelchairs? It's 130, right? And then from there we know that when you have our ratio, we want it to be in the form of 1:something. Therefore, you need to divide by 4. And what you do on the left-hand side, you need to do on the right-hand side. And we found that we had 1:65/2. Then we had a problem here. We cannot leave our answer as 65/2. Cannot leave a ratio answer in a fraction form, right? Therefore, we need to then multiply by 2 on the right hand side to get rid of the 2 in the denominator, right? You see that there, the 2's cancel. And what you do on the right hand side, guys, you need to do on the left hand side. Therefore, we see that then the ratio of the wheelchair spaces to the patrons not in wheelchairs is 2:65. How will they mark this question? Okay, so you'll get a mark for obviously showing that 4:130, right? You'll get a mark for your final ratio of 2:65. And guys, very important, you will get a mark for obviously then showing how you counted the number of seats that have been designated for people that do not use a wheelchair. So you'll get another mark for showing that there, and that is how you will get your 3 marks. Cool stuff. Love this question, right? And then question 4.1.3. On Friday evenings, pre-COVID, right? So we're still in pre-COVID, guys. And I said that when they say pre, we know that it's before COVID-19, okay? All the seats in the cinema, excluding the wheelchair spaces, were always occupied. So they said before the COVID-19, all the seats in the cinema were always occupied, right? We need to calculate the percentage income lost due to social distancing during the pandemic if all the tickets for the seats are equally priced, right? So here we basically want to determine how much income, right? Or what is the percentage of the income that we've basically lost, or that was basically lost, né? Due to social distancing during the pandemic, if all the seats or if all the tickets for the seats were equally priced. Okay, so in this question, guys, we basically need to determine how many seats would have been occupied, right? If it was before COVID, right? And then how many seats were actually occupied during the COVID-19 pandemic, and then we basically get our percentage income lost from that. Okay, so let us basically do that. Okay, so like I mentioned, we basically need to calculate how many seats, right, were occupied pre-COVID, okay, and then during COVID, okay. And please also take note of this important thing that they said. They said that we need to exclude the wheelchair spaces. So when we're calculating the number of seats, right, that were available before COVID, pre-COVID, right, you need to exclude what? Your wheelchair spaces. And during COVID, you also need to exclude your wheelchair spaces. Okay, so we already calculated your pre-COVID seats available, excluding your wheelchair spaces, right, in this question, guys. And we found that if we had to basically calculate the number of seats, found that it was 130 seats, right? So your pre-COVID seats available, right, if we do not count your wheelchair spaces, is actually 130 seats, right? And then how many seats were now available, right, for people to basically buy tickets for during the COVID pandemic, right? Here, guys, you basically need to count all the seats that do not have the X on them, right? So we need to count the seats. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So those are all the seats that we're going to be counting, okay? So guys, you're going to keep counting all of those seats, right? And you'll find that when you count all those seats that do not have or all the white seats, right, you'll find that you get 60 seats, 66 seats were available, right, during your COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so you'll find that it is 66 seats. Okay. And then all that we need to do from this question, guys, it told us that we need to basically calculate the percentage income lost due to the social distancing during the pandemic if all the tickets for the seats are equally priced. So what is the percentage of the income that was lost due to social distancing during the pandemic, right? So all that you need to do, guys, you're going to take you want to take that 66 seats, right? Okay. And you're going to divide it by the total seats that were available pre-COVID-19, which is 130 seats, right? And because, guys, we want the percentage income lost, we just need to multiply it by 100, right? And when we do that, guys, you will find that it is actually 50.769230.7%, okay, which is approximately, if you round it off to 2 decimal places, 50.77%. Okay, so this basically means that approximately, right, half of the cinema seats were not occupied during the COVID-19 pandemic, right? So the percentage income that was lost was 50% of the cinema's seats were not occupied. All right. So with this question, it's a bit tricky, right? But I think if you basically followed with me attentively, you should be able to, I think it's clear what is expected from you. You're not calculating any price lost, all right? You just want to determine how much percentage income was lost due to the COVID-19 pandemic, right? So you calculate how many seats were available before COVID-19, how many seats were available during COVID-19, right? And then you use those two values to basically calculate the percentage income that was lost, right? So it's going to be 66% divided by 130, right? Times it by 100 because you want the percentage. And we found that the percentage income lost due to the COVID-19 pandemic was basically 50.77%. Okay. How would this be marked, right? So you'll get 1 mark for showing that during the COVID-19 pandemic, right, we had 66. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, we had 66 seats that were vacant, right? So you'll get a mark for that. You'll get a mark for obviously doing your percentage calculation, and you'll get a final mark for that 50.77%, right? And that is out of 3 marks. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video tutorial. I hope that I explained it to you guys in a way that was simple and straightforward for you guys to understand, right? And honesty, right, with these questions, you really need to understand, like when we're talking about, if they say E4 from E15, here, guys, you need to be aware that we're dealing with a reference point, right? What is our starting point? You can't just go from E14 to E15, because another person was probably just going to say, oh, they say E4 from E15, and then they look at point, and that would be incorrect. Okay, so you need to be aware of what your reference point is. Okay, and in this case, if they say from something, then your reference point is that value that comes after your from. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video tutorial, and I'll see you guys on my next tutorial. That is it, guys, and I'll see you guys on my next upload, Distance Learning with Lee, where I make learning mathematics super easy. Bye, guys.